Ask Me Anything by Redical. I'm Elizabeth Smart, abduction survivor and advocate. Ask Me Anything. The abduction of Elizabeth Smart was one of the most followed child abduction cases of our time. Smart was abducted on the 5th of June, 2002, and her captors controlled her by threatening to kill her and her family if she tried to escape. Fortunately, the police safely returned Elizabeth back to her family on the 12th of March, 2003 after being held prisoner for 9 grueling months. What's your opinion of journalists after your personal experience? Was there any good for you that came from them and their reports? Did you see so many as exploitative? I think the media is like a double-edged sword. It has huge power for good, but at the same time it can come at a cost. For me, the majority of my experiences have always added to the greater good. There are a few exceptions, however. Cough Nancy Grace cough. Did you suffer from PTSD? How was the treatment? How long was that road? I feel extremely blessed in that I have not suffered from PTSD. I have had flashbacks. I now have aversions to things that didn't bother me before. But that's it. I wouldn't dare compare my abduction to yours. I was able to escape almost immediately. It was very traumatic for several reasons, but I always thought I was handling well. Some 25 years later, a cardiologist noticed I had been referred 3 times over a 6-year period during the same week. After realizing it was PTSD, I have learned to see the symptoms coming and manage it. I guess I want to warn you to be observant. You are such a strong young lady, and I remember the day you were discovered. It was a special day for us all. What would you most like to tell us that no one has asked? My favorite movie is Eddie the Eagle. I can eat Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia by the pint. And my toughest boss is my 2-year-old daughter. Eddie the Eagle is so good. What misconceptions about your abduction would you like to make people more aware of? I couldn't just run away. I couldn't just scream out. Everything I did to survive. I never suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. I never identified with my captors or cared about them. Every decision was made with survival in mind. Thank you so much for clearing up the misconceptions about Stockholm Syndrome. I read your book a few months ago and appreciate so much your willingness to share your experiences and help others by doing so. God bless you and your family. Were there moments when you thought this is it? Conversely, were there moments when you thought this will all be over soon? Yes, there were lots of times I thought, this is it, I'm going to die, whether if it was directly at the hands of my captors or through consequences of their actions. It was hard to believe it was over until I was in my dad's arms being hugged at the police station. Your dad was amazing. He managed to keep you in the public's mind without turning the rest of the family into a sideshow. He did an excellent job of humanizing you. I think we all felt like we knew Elizabeth Smart on some level, as a daughter or niece, or as that pretty but quiet girl in school. I second the suggestion he run for president. Did you ever have any contact with Nancy Grace after the garbage she tried to pull with you? BTW, I don't think you could have handled that any better. Thank you. And number. I sat next to a lady on an airplane that said you were her granddaughter. We were flying from Salt Lake to Palm Springs a few years ago. She was very nice and kept telling me of how proud of you she was and how she felt since your return. She also started to get a bit personal about how she processed everything. I felt embarrassed because I didn't know much about your situation, and it also felt odd asking about your situation without your permission. I will also add that I had doubts that she was your grandma. There are weird people out there that will tell you anything. I did everything in my power to bring up topics that didn't relate to you or your ordeal. When I arrived at my parents' place in Palm Springs, they had a magazine that, in it, contained an article about you, and it also had a photo of your immediate family. There was a lady that sat next to me on the plane, so I guess she was telling me the truth. Anyway, I hope your grandmother is in good health. She was very sweet. Sorry I doubted her that she was your grandma. Edit. I found the picture I took of the magazine. Imgur.com link. I guess I brought up that point because I found it so weird that when I got to California there was an article about Elizabeth that just happened to be at my parents' house the day I met grandma, and in that article it showed a picture of her family where the grandma was pictured. I just couldn't believe that the universe provided proof that it was actually her. That's why I bring it up. Sorry, you/staff nutritionist. In your opinion as a children's advocate, what are some practical, common sense steps parents can take to help their children avoid abuse? And I guess I mean abuse in a general way, anything from extreme bullying to abduction. Make sure your child knows that they are loved unconditionally, and make sure your child knows what unconditionally means. Make sure that your child understands that no one has the right to hurt them or scare them in any way. It doesn't matter what that person may be. Family, friend, religious leader, community leader. It doesn't matter. Should anyone hurt your child or threaten them in any way, they need to tell you. 4. Make sure your kids know that no matter what threats someone makes, that they can't hurt you, the parent. This is an additional one I told my boys. The most obvious question is how are you doing, and also what type of therapy has helped the most? I'm great. You have to find what's right for you in therapy. There's no formula for everyone. For me, my family was huge. I found my music extremely therapeutic. I have always found horseback riding and being in nature therapeutic. What was it like trying to rejoin society? Did people always want to ask details, or have they generally been respectful? People have almost always been very respectful. The hardest part about rejoining society was realizing that I would never go back to being the old me. My family owns a small restaurant in a mountain town near your home, and you've come in to eat a few times. We always tried to be respectful and not bring attention to you. But there were times I wanted to tell you how amazing it is that you can just be what appears to be a normal person. I can't imagine the struggles you go through every day, but I'm amazed that there are people like you who have the strength to just keep going. Not even talking about all the good you do. You're an amazing person, and you deserve all that you try to get in your life. Is there anything you noticed in your captor, whether it be a certain look or manner of speech, that would serve as a red flag for you if seen heard from another person? Or, rather, can you sense if someone you encounter is capable of such a thing? There are things that make me wary, one of them being when someone uses religion excessively to justify what they've done or are going to do. How did you meet your husband? How has he been involved with your advocacy work? We were both serving missions in France for our church, and that's where we met. He supports me so that I can do my advocacy work because it can be emotionally taxing. Thank you for all of your questions. If I missed your questions, I still might answer them on my The Special Elizabeth Smart Questions Answered on A&E on November 20th. In case you come back, I wanted to add my thanks for speaking out and to relate a quick story. I am from a small college town in Minnesota where an 11-year-old boy named Jacob was abducted in 1989. His family, friends, and community never stopped looking for him until he was found in 2016 when his abductor led the FBI to his remains. For that quarter century, people held on to the hope that he would be found alive. I mention this because on the 12th of March, 2003, I was in SLC with a group of students from our college when you were found. The outpouring of joy we witnessed across the city that day and in the days that followed was amazing. Everyone in our group was so happy for you and your family, and your story helped reignite the hope that Jacob would one day be found alive and return to our community. While that didn't happen, your story remains one of hope and resilience that we talk about in our community still today. When our kids ask what happened to Jacob and why people do such terrible things to each other. So thanks for being strong and providing a ray of hope to others around the country. We wish you well. From our little community in Minnesota to yours. I am a survivor of human trafficking, which actually started around the time you had went missing. When you were found, I remember it giving me hope and something to keep working toward because it reminded me that there are people out there who care. What was the hardest thing you faced in terms of speaking out and becoming an advocate? I still have so much guilt tied to my experience, and I'm 30 now, and while I've worked through so much of that, I can't seem to fully accept that it was something that happened to me, not something that I did. If there was one main thing that you wanted to tell a survivor about speaking out, what would it be? The hardest thing about speaking out and becoming an advocate was the fear of having everyone know what happened to me. The one thing I would tell a survivor about speaking out is no matter what people's reactions are, you deserve happiness, you deserve love, you deserve support, and you deserve to know that you are worthwhile. This is lovely and true. Hi Elizabeth. Thank you for opening yourself up to us in this manner. I've held you in my thoughts and heart for years. Just wishing you the best. I'm just wondering, in general, how did your friends treat you after your return home? Have you stayed in contact with any of your friends from before your abduction? And were you able to find support in your friends upon return? Yes, I still have many friends from before I was abducted, and it was awkward maybe the first 2 seconds I was home, and then things just picked up where we had left off. Those are some quality friends. Has your abduction created any challenges for you as a wife and a mother? Well, my husband doesn't like being called Mr. Smart, but other than that, no. Or that I've yet to experience. Thanks for watching this Radical video. Subscribe for the best Reddit videos straight to your feed.